Well, it's time for the annual Jaws review. This year, we're closing it off. We're doing the final one, Jaws: The Revenge, and this review will be dedicated to the memory of Judith Barcy, who played young Thea in the movie. Anyway, let's go. Jaws: The Revenge stars Lorraine Gary, Lance Guest, Michael Caine, and is directed by Joseph Sargent. What's up, guys? Very exciting day for a couple reasons. One, we're doing the annual Jaws review, and two, I just did a quick buttload of Halloween content for Halloween Kills. Even I, the Halloween fanboy myself, am kind of excited to set that aside for a little bit and get back to some regular content. And I do love the Jaws franchise. I have not seen Jaws: The Revenge in probably 30 years. It's been that long. Not a movie that I throw in that often. So I literally went on Amazon and I ordered the Blu-ray right back there just so I could give it a fresh, clean watch. And I did that, and wow. Okay, so I'm looking forward to getting into this review, okay? I'm going to have a segment in this that I like to call How to Fix Jaws: The Revenge, because I think there was potential here. And I think if they would have tweaked a few elements of this movie, then it might have been better, okay? A lot better, because I'll tell you right now, it's definitely the worst of the Jaws movies for me. I have seen some people state that they like this movie better than they do Jaws 3. Hell no, not for me, but I do enjoy Jaws 3. I have a good time with Jaws 3. But like I said, there are some promising elements to Jaws: The Revenge. So first off, let's get into this quick plot synopsis. This starts off with the death of a beloved character, Sean Brody. We all know the Brody family, you know, Sean, Michael, Ellen, and of course, Chief Martin Brody. And I'm not gonna lie, I literally had to look that up because I didn't know what Chief Brody's first name was. I'm sure I knew back in the past, but we always call him Brody. Nobody ever calls him Martin Brody. So yeah, now it comes back to me. Okay, it is Martin Brody. I should be ashamed of myself. I know. It's funny. I knew his wife and his kids' names before I knew his first name because he's Brody, you know? And maybe it goes with the job because he's the police chief and they always call him either chief or their last name. I was in the military. Everybody goes by their last name in the military. So anyway, let's press forward. The youngest, Sean Brody, he is the deputy of Amity. This takes place in Christmas, which is a little bit different because all the other Jaws movies take place during the summer. That's a problem. He's going out to check an issue that's in the ocean. And of course, Jaws comes upon him and kills him. And by the way, let me just say, this first attack, it put me a bit off kilter by the way it was filmed because it didn't feel like the attacks that we've seen in other movies, you know? Like in the first movie, the very first scene, we never see the shark. We just see the reactions, whereas in this scene, it feels like it's cut kind of weird and it doesn't all mesh together right. It feels like something is missing from this attack. So I guess the takeaway here is you either film the theater of the mind or you just flat out show the shark, you know, grasping onto the body. And this is somewhere in between that, and for me, it just didn't play out right. But anyway, the mother, Ellen Brody, of course, she is distraught, and her son, Michael, played by the great Lance Guest, comes back to console her. And this is a cool scene, too, because we do see a couple of, like, Jaws alumni, a couple of characters that were in the first movie, and I think a couple of the other movies. But the main focal point here is Ellen Brody, which I like. I think that's a cool idea. And Ellen is hell-bent on putting this nightmare behind her. You know, there's a lot of psychological damage. This shark, or sharks, has plagued the Brody family. It's kind of like an aftermath type thing. Like, how do you pick up the pieces from that? So, what do? The shark wants revenge on the family. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble, and that's the big reason why this is on some of like worst horror movies of all time list or best worst bad movies of all time list, because it's just preposterous that this shark who's not the original shark, he's not even related to the original shark, would want to get revenge on the Brody family, to constantly come after them. Now, if you look into the novelization of this movie, the shark comes after them because of like a voodoo spell or something like that. Like there was this witch that cast the spell on Michael. Because of that spell, the shark comes after them. Which makes it even worse, because then when you're throwing witchcraft into a Jaws movie, it gets really stupid. So I see why they took that part out of it. But then you're left with this huge gaping plot hole. Like, why is this shark coming after them that, again, is not the original shark? It could make you go crazy. Now, for the time, this was a very expensive movie, but it feels very low budget when you watch it. And one thing I noticed about it was kind of the sound design. Like, there's scenes where the characters are talking, and you hear like background noise that's cranked up a little bit too high and it gets in the way of the scene. There's a couple scenes like that. Like you got one scene where they're on the boat with Michael and Jake, played by Mario Van Peebles, who's definitely memorable in this movie. This guy's just like playing the drums, like almost like the bongos on the actual boat. And so in the background, it's just like, what the hell's going on? And the character even tells him, would you stop drumming?
Get off mediocrity with fattening, you'd all be whales. And will you knock off that stupid drumming?
But also, a lot of the acting in this movie is pretty subpar. Pretty bad, actually. It feels very low budget. So I guess that's just, I don't care how much money you throw at a movie, if you don't have your basic things that don't cost that much to get right, like, you know, your levels and your sound design and your acting, then it's going to hurt the movie no matter what. But also, jumping back onto the plot, Ellen is a strange character in this movie. She's picking up the pieces of her life. She starts dating this local named Hoagie, played by the great Michael Caine, who took this money to basically buy a house and pay off his gambling debts. And he's never watched the movie to this day. Which, that's common anyway. A lot of actors don't really watch their movies, but it's just kind of a funny little tidbit about the production. But Ellen keeps having like these nightmares about the shark, and there's this like one scene where she like can sense what's going on with the shark. Like there's this psychic connection between her and the shark. Really, she has like a Laurie Strode moment where she's like, it dies tonight. You know, it's her against the shark. And she wants to put an end to it once and for all. Now, Lance Guest, I think, is a welcome addition to this. It's interesting that this feels like parts 2 and 3 don't even exist. You know, because Michael is actually in part 2 and he's in part 3, played by Dennis Quaid. But Dennis Quaid is not in this movie. He was offered the part, but he never came back. But the filmmakers, they never even saw Jaws 2 and 3. So I think that's a big reason why this feels so far removed from those previous 2 movies. Especially Jaws 3. But it was nice seeing Lance Guest in this, because I haven't seen him in too many things outside of Halloween 2. He's got a beard in this. Suits him quite well, actually. He's a good actor. He does have a really funny scene where he's running, and when he gets in the water, he has the silliest water run, which I guess we all look silly when we run in water, but it's a funny scene. But in this movie, Michael is married. He's got this young daughter named Thea, and the reason I dedicated this was because the character Thea was played by this young actress named Judith Barcy, who was 10 years old. Unfortunately, her family life was complete hell. You know, her father threatened her and her mother, and so when she came back from shooting this movie, she was tragically killed. Her father literally shot her and her mother with a gun and then set the house on fire. Just completely tragic. And you hate finding out stories like this, especially when it involves young children. It made me think of like Heather O'Rourke from the Poltergeist series. You know, just really, really sad. Now, before we talk about how we fixed this movie, gotta talk about the last act. They shot a couple of different versions of this scene when they actually take out the shark. Shark's coming after pretty much everybody on the boat. I guess it's impaled by the bow. And for some reason, it like explodes, which I was scratching my head on that one. Like, how would impalement cause an explosion? And I'm no expert in this territory, but they were using like these electrical sensors, I guess, to confuse the shark, to freak the shark out. And I think that's why the shark sounded like King Kong in a lot of the scenes, which was really silly. Like, why is a shark making King Kong sounds? Or does King Kong actually sound like that? Probably not. The sound design guy actually said, no, fuck that. I'm not doing it. A shark should not make a sound. So they ended up grabbing something like from the archives. But it's a very funny and laughable, memorable scene, is just when you hear that shark roar. Which, funny enough, in the first Jaws, actually, there is a faint roar when the shark has already exploded and he's sinking down into the water. But in this one, you know, it's less of a subconscious type thing and more just really in your face. You know, the shark is like roaring. I can almost picture Godzilla and King Kong on either side of him as he's roaring coming out of the water. Oh, and how the hell is Jake alive by the end of this movie when they're attacked? That makes no freaking sense whatsoever. If you see the way that shark like gobbled up his body and then pulled him underwater, and he feels like he's underwater for a good couple minutes. No way in hell. Now, jumping over to how you fix this movie, because I think it did have some promise there. I think Lance Guest was cast very well in this movie. There's just some silly things going on around him. And hell, you do have Lorraine Gary back, which is really awesome. It's nice to have that continuity there. So I think if they would have worked the story, tweaked the story a little bit, not made this psychic connection, because you can still have a shark attack type movie without a psychic connection. Hell, Sean could still be attacked by a shark. You don't need that psychic connection. And then you could have this situation where Lorraine does the unthinkable, and instead of doing what every normal person would do and get the hell off of the island and stay away from the water and never going again, she goes on this quest for like self-discovery or something like that and conquers her own inner demons by facing the shark once and for all. Again, you don't need a psychic connection because it's not the original shark from the first movie. I keep saying that because it makes no sense why they would do that. So take that stuff out of there, beef up the story a bit, make it about this, you know, woman's self-discovery after seeing all the men in her life just constantly be attacked by this shark. Because I get that you can't always leave your profession, and her kids, that's what they know. You know, that's what Sean knew. That's why he became the deputy. And there's been so many cases of people that were attacked by sharks and they still went back in the water because, you know, they don't want fear to overcome them. So you could work around all these thematic elements, I think, in the story. And Jaws Revenge could have been a decent movie. Because really, at the end of the day, for shark movies, what do we want? We want some nice carnage candy. We don't ask for too much. There's not even that much of that in this movie. You know, it's more of a character study that goes awry, that goes wrong. And there's only a couple of kills in the movie, and they're nothing special. So I think that's a big problem with the movie. And I think that's why it's so forgettable. And the reason people put it on those, you know, best worst movies list is because of how silly the freaking plot is with Ellen having a psychic connection with a fucking shark. So at the end of the day, guys, Jaws of Revenge, definitely my least favorite of the bunch. I am going to give it, I'll give it a 2 hours lost, okay? I'm not giving it a looped in hell because it is a fun, bad movie to watch, I guess. And I did like having Lance Guest in there, and it was cool having Lorraine Gary back. Anyway, guys, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.